So I had to step in a little bit last minute. Apologies, instead of an East German, you got a Western Canadian here today, so I'll try to do this in English. But if you have any questions, definitely ask in German, and I'll try to answer you in my best Middle German. So, yeah, well, so far, I think there's a bit of pressure on me now. I think winner strategies for the technology or production of the future. That's a big title. I'm not sure if we can say we know we're winners yet, but we have a direction that we're going, and I'll explain to you how we think we're going to be successful going in this direction. So for us, it's about digitalization, of course, and people say end-to-end quite a lot. I'll explain what end-to-end for us means, or what we see it to mean, and we're doing this as a really fast and a really interesting experiment, I would say, where we're probably not allowed to fail too much. So what I'm going to go through today, if you don't understand me, please put up your hand. I can try to translate. If I'm going too fast, because I get quite excited, put up your hand and I can go slower. Is explain a little bit about who we are and why I'm standing here. A little bit about our consumer as well, so you can understand what we're doing. A little bit about the status of our industry. So I think there was a few hints before of what's going on, and I think everyone is aware of what's happening in the world. I'm going to explain about Speedfactory and what that is. I think it's been in the media quite a lot, and a word around that as well within the company is Futurecraft. And also a little bit then about how we a different way of business model that we're going to do. We call it Lab to Street right now within our group. So first, the mission statement of the company. So through sport, we have the power to change lives. And for us, our mission statements have changed a few times. I've been with the company for about 12 years. But I think in the last years, this has really brought a new energy to the company. I think we can see in the stock market as well, it's somehow going well. But I think internally, to feel this within the employees, I think looking at things like Speedfactory, looking at partnerships with big companies, I think, and thinking of how our company can obviously still make money, but also really change lives or change the way we do business in the world has really kind of resonated with our employees. So I'm a part of the Future team. Essentially, we're a smaller group, almost like a startup, I would say, within the company, which is a really nice place to be for me. I mentioned before German engineers. I'm on my way to being a German engineer. I have a German wife and a German house, but I'm Canadian. But within our group, essentially, we couple together very closely engineering, which I'm here representing today, sports science, so where we understand how our products still, actually, I'm contractually obliged to have a shoe with me on stage at all times, so I have one today, and design and then innovation work together. And so we sit on a daily basis with people from all these different factions. Jan Hill, who is going to talk today, he's a part of the upstream innovation team. And my engineering team supports him with a lot of the projects that they're trying to go forward with. So what we are, we're definitely curious about science, how we typically work. We're very lean, actually. We're quite a small amount of people. Actually, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad to be on a small team of engineers in a very large design company. Normally, I have to, when I get up on stage, explain I won't show too many graphs and say too many numbers. I don't think I'll talk about stress or strain today, but I might have one or two graphs that are fairly easy to understand. But I think for us, it was always, and it still is always about the product that we're trying to create. But now we're trying to go about it in a bit of a different way. So just to understand the setup as well a little bit, we talked a little bit about startups before. We've taken also a bit of a startup mentality in how we've organized our Future team, so the R&D team. So we have kind of three distinct groups within it: a discovery phase, so someone who's looking at maybe something, or this group is looking at technologies that are maybe 10 years plus in other industries that are coming, so general trends or big swings that are going. And once we start thinking, this is going to be pretty good, it kind of translates into the incubation team. And then when we have it, we start accelerating it, and the Speedfactory is a good example of accelerating it. So this is all kind of organized a little bit by our technology innovation management team, and then engineering and sports science and design. We support these groups in order to create new opportunities for Adidas. So when we started this, we obviously spoke to a lot of people. We looked over the last 10 years at where the number of innovations are and some of the different domains that were going on. And I can honestly say I really lived this within the company. I've been there, I mentioned 12 years, and I would probably say for the first 8 years, I spent all of my time, or my team spent all of their time, really just innovating on the product level. So product performance, making better running shoes, making cushioning better, making you run faster, changing clothing to help support you. And this is really great, it's really exciting, but we really found that we couldn't make big innovations just looking down this alley. So we started then looking at processes and how could we put new processes in to create product. And so we did that in some of our more traditional ways. So we would go to some of our partners, most likely in Asia, and try to maybe change a piece of the production line, or to make something better, to make something new, to give us a new innovation potential, and then edge over our competitors. But this was a little bit like banging our heads against the wall, because those systems have been in place for a long time. They're massive, massive factories, and actually a lot of the factories in Asia are producing at the same time in a separate area for our competitors as well. So even if we did innovate something quite nice and put up walls and security and USB protection, everything, eventually, it's going to translate to our competitors, and we don't have that advantage so much anymore. So we looked at this focus on product innovation, and we said, well, what can we do differently? And so we said, okay, we're not getting a lot of value out of doing product innovation, so how can we focus in other areas to become more impactful for our company? Because we were kind of seen as just guys hiding in a box, working on their science and making a new running shoe every once in a while. So we've really focused ourselves now and reorganized ourselves to look at our innovation impact. So the potential, we still had potential there, and we had some great products coming out over the years, over time, just looking at the product innovation. And I mentioned a little bit about our process innovation, but now what we're seeing and what we're trying to really apply and implement with what we're doing is business model innovation and giving Adidas new ways of doing things. And like we mentioned before, it can be a challenge if you're in a giant organization, which is why it's nice that we have a bit of the freedom to operate kind of like a startup or a side company within our bigger company. So for us, what we're trying to do is provide focus. There's lots of people looking at trends within our company. Trends are obviously very important. And see where we can maximize the value. And for us, maybe the trends in fashion is one thing that's looked at in our design aspect of the company. But we're really trying to look at and find partners that we can work with where we can focus on new technologies and new offerings. So very concretely, actually, we've gone and we've looked for people who work in sectors that are not related to us. So typically, if someone is working in our industry, they also think the way we've done things in our industry for a long time. I'm not saying everyone, because we have some great partners who do that as well, but we've very consciously gone out and looked for people who would work with us, who are maybe in that medium-sized company here. And I was talking last night with some people. For me, as an engineer coming from Canada, it's an amazing place to work here in Germany and Austria, because almost 4 hours from everywhere around Herzogenaurach, which is near Nuremberg, where our headquarters is, there's an amazing world-leading company. So there's a bit of a joke in our company, because I think our cars that we have in our fleet, we essentially need about 5 hours to find the world leader in something. And it's been really exciting and a little bit tiring driving all over the Germany and Switzerland and Austria over the last 4 or 5 years, meeting all of these people. But I think we're doing some really great things with these companies. So we've really focused on enablers, and so some things like that. Maybe you've seen in the news the last while, partnering as well with a company called Carbon 3D. So one of the more, or we would say most innovative 3D printing companies, but other things as well. So working with automation companies, working with obviously digital experts and industry 4.0 leaders and visionaries. But I think this is probably more a personal feeling. A lot of the challenges we found in the IT world were the big plans. And so we come from as a smaller group, a very do culture. So have an idea, do it, and and see how it works out, and then go on and make it bigger and make it bigger. And we're really snowballing this idea right now. And if we talk, and I'm not talking about all IT, but even within our company, we've had the best success working with the people who really listen to what we're doing and maybe hit the 70% solution. For us, usually that means they have to do it in a few weeks, not some years. And then when that's looking good, move up a little bit further. And all of this is focusing towards providing new experiences for our consumers. So I talked about that business model innovation before. It was really great timing for us in 2015 when our company decided to change its strategic business plan. So it's called Creating the New. If you come to our campus, actually, there's these pictures and a giant thing, Creating the New, over our big building. But what this means for us is actually really, sometimes you could say the strategic business plan really doesn't touch all of the staff, because what does working with a creator have to do with someone who's in finance? But really, I think the feeling within the company has really helped and has really changed things around, and we've seen quite a positive success as well, or a positive trend right now in the industry. So what this means for us, we've had 3 strategic choices. One of them is being open source, and for us, it's always important to explain to people that doesn't mean we're taking every invention or every idea that someone writes us or phone calls and says, I think now Adidas should put the stripes vertically on a pair of socks. But it's just working with people. So sometimes it's very large people like BASF, Siemens and things like that. Other times it's with influencers such as Kanye West, very interesting character. He does work very, very closely with all of our designers, and he does come to our factories, and he stands there and does 24-hour shifts finishing his shoes, which he's not just a figurehead who's rapping a little bit in the background. Quite interesting working with him. And we've also decided to focus on some key cities, so 6 major cities across the world, and really focus on speed. So we really want to be the first true fast sports company. So our industry, we kind of think we're fast, and compared to other industries, typically our product life cycle or our development cycle is about 18 months. And we have 2 seasons per year. So every 6 months, new products are coming out. We do about 36,000 articles per season. So it is fast, but actually not fast enough now. So that's where the Speedfactory comes in. We also are we're doing what we're doing to really try to connect with this generation of creators. And I'm going to go a little bit now into what we believe our focus market is, just so you can understand why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, and provide that link to the factory as well. Because sometimes if you say, and even people within the company, if you say, okay, we're making a factory that does shoes really quickly, like, yeah, that's great. So you make a factory, but we already have factories, and we're already doing 360 million pairs of shoes per year. So how's this really going to help us? And I think it's explaining now what I'm going to try to go through, how this will play into the lives and our strategy as a complement to our traditional manufacturing strategy. This will go that we're focusing on. So the creator consumer, what does that mean? Because creator is used a lot, maker is seen a lot, there's fab labs coming everywhere. We just built a beautiful maker lab right outside our office as well. But it's working with the people, and we're not saying that everyone needs to be a shoe designer or a clothing designer. Sometimes they just want some choices or some options, and we want to be able to provide that flexibility towards that los große Eins, so individual thing. But for us, it's not just about that individualization. So we do offer individualization now. You can go online. It's more aesthetic, a little bit of performance-based stuff, but you can customize a shoe with colors and your size and left and right and width and stuff like that. And in 6 weeks, you have the product delivered to your door that's essentially unique. Nobody wants to wait 6 weeks right now. There's hardly, well, I wouldn't say hardly anything, but there are very few people who really go through this program. And all of our competitors offer this, and we have for years, but you don't really see it catching fire in the industry. So we're focusing on kind of 2 main areas. Gen Y, this is about 2 billion people globally, ages 18 to 34, and they'll be about 75% of the workforce by 2025. So they're pretty digital. I think we heard a few things earlier today. And then Gen Z as well for us, particularly in the US, it's a big focus for what we're doing. About 47 million people, 17 years old and under, and they influence about 600 billion in parental spending, if not their own spending right now. and they're really digital natives. And so I'm going to explain to you what that means. Even for me, I'm not that old, but it's completely different when I see how maybe there's some
We are part of a generation some call Generation Z, digital natives, or the final generation. Whatever you call us, we are in our early 20s or younger and are spread across the entire globe. By 2020, we will make up roughly 40% of the world population with a combined buying power of $2 trillion. In other words, the future can be shaped with us or by us alone. You decide. We grew up in a world of constant change and uncertainty. An urban life with health and environmental challenges, with constant economic and social unrest. A world with 24/7 access to information, always on, with a continuous convergence of the physical and digital world. We are realists. We know it will not be handed to us, and we are ready to build our own future to make a difference in the world. Our lives are always a work in progress, aspiring to explore, learn, grow, and ultimately improve ourselves and the world around us. We are inspired by real people doing real things. We are willing to fail fast and often, always taking risks. We are hyper-focused, dedicated to go where we want. We know what it takes and we are willing to commit ourselves to it. We are constantly connecting, collaborating, and creating to exchange ideas, knowledge, and skills. We care about the world, about each other, and about a sustainable life. To make all this happen, technology is our enabler. To finding answers, building skills, connecting with others, expressing our feelings. Technology is a permanent part of our lives.
So for me, it's actually very important. Actually, we show that quite a lot within our teams, just to focus the reason that we're doing a lot of this stuff. Because it's nice to have an injection molding machine that's coupled, and so we can see what it's producing and how quickly and how many shoes we're doing out. But if we can't translate that into something that matters to these people, and in the end, something that matters to our company, we're not going to be as successful as we probably could be. So their expectations of this consumer, that it's about them, they can see through a lot of stuff that we're doing. So they want to make sure that we're not producing in, probably a lot of people have the vision of a dirty factory with lots of people in Asia producing. Actually, I was surprised myself. I've worked in factories in auto industry and things like that in other parts of the world, and the factories that we have there are very nice. But they want that transparency to see where the product is and how it's been created. And the need for newness. So for us, it's a bit scary sometimes. 80% of the net sales we generate are articles less than 1 year old. So I said before, 36,000 per season, 2 seasons per year, and 80% of that is new all of the time. There's a lot of very busy people doing what we're doing, and that's some of the challenge for us to automate what we're doing. So to say we want speed, that's nice, but if you can imagine, so I have a shoe here up on stage, one shoe. We have a left and right. So if you want to open a tooling for that, you have a left and a right. We do 21 sizes, so now we have 42. Then we offer this in 10 colors. So every yarn, every piece of foam, every piece of textile has to come in 10 colors in 42 sizes. And this kind of explodes and explodes and explodes for all of those articles that we're doing. So in order to be speedy, we can't just focus on opening up new toolings or really concentrating what's going on kind of larger things. We really had to change the way that we're working. As well, we talked a little bit about co-creation. I'll go through this a bit quickly, and also look at our industry today. So we do have increasing costs in our industry. We do have very complex things I just explained with our product, and everything that we're working on is also very floppy. So it's not so easy to grip a piece of fabric and work it with a robot unless you have a few tricks. Our flexibility today is handled by using very skilled labor who can change. They don't care if they're doing a football boot and the next shoe that they do is a Stan Smith and the next shoe is a Ultra Boost running shoe, because the humans can adapt. But machines are not generally that flexible unless we do it smartly. So with this changing world, I think obviously digitization is a part of it. I don't think we need to explain to this group of people what Industry 4.0 is, or the fourth industrial revolution. But I'd like to introduce a little bit of how we're approaching the Speedfactory. So I have to say, actually, this video is a little bit older. This is our factory as it stood in last September. We built up a factory again. We said 70% solution. We built up a factory in a place about the size of this room. to see what we could do, we coupled the things together, and we produced only 1,000 shoes. We took those shoes, we sold them in Berlin very quickly, and essentially ripped that factory down, and now we've built it up about 20, let's say 30 times bigger in Ansbach, and that factory is now starting mass production actually this week. And in September, we're doing the same thing in the USA, just outside of Atlanta. So very quickly, we have to work fast with what we're doing. We started this official Speedfactory project 2 years ago now. And so in 2 years, we went from literally greenfield, so there was actually a greenfield, built up the walls, concepted the machines, and are now trying to produce product in a very flexible way. So I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into what it is. We've purposely left out a few of the steps in there, but this is something that you can see. I'll talk over it a little bit, because what's interesting for us to see, and if you don't know how you make shoes right now, we have a very big amount of suppliers, so tier 3, tier 4, tier 2, tier 1. And what we've tried to do in this is bring everything under one roof, or at least fundamentally understand where everything comes from. So essentially on one side of the factory, we have polymers and yarns coming in, and on the other side, the shoe goes out. We're not going to a separate company. So here we see we're injecting ourselves, we're knitting ourselves the upper. So we've created a new way of creating these midsoles. We're knitting the upper. We're cutting it out, again, very flexibly. Laser cutting tables aren't new, but coupling that to directly our designers' desks when they're designing a new product is quite interesting. New ways of putting reinforcements on, so we can switch between shoes. We can switch the color. One shoe can be size 9, the next shoe can be a football boot, and size 12, the next shoe can be a basketball shoe, essentially. Using automation technologies in order to realize this, again, without any molds. And where we've really needed to, we still have human labor in. And we're working on replacing some of it, but I don't think it always makes sense to replace all of the human labor. And we're not out to try to take jobs away from people. I think we've only created jobs with these initiatives, and if you see the impact on our whole market right now, obviously we hope it grows, but it's not the most. But we're really trying to do things as well to really limit the number of chemicals that we're using and the amount of glue, and reduce that. So we have a more sustainable story, or a more sustainable product in the end, that also allows us to recycle it in the future, because that is something that is important to our consumer. So we created this shoe. We sold 1,000 of them. Now we're starting the mass production up. So by the end of this year, it's not the biggest numbers, but we're looking to do about 80,000 pairs by 2020, about 5 million pairs in these 2 factories. But for us, that's really exciting, because we're not a really big team. But we are working with a very big team of very talented people all throughout the world, I guess, to help us do that. Great. So I explained our approach about moving from the polymer to the final shoe, but also I want to show you a little bit about the experience. And I know I'm talking a little bit long right now. I apologize for going on there. I said I get really excited about this topic. But in terms of ultimate flexibility, here's an example of an Ultra Boost shoe where we've changed a few things in terms of how it looks, maybe added some chrome or some bling on there for our consumers. That's not the flexibility we're talking about. We do want to have precision. I think before you mentioned German engineering. I like to think Canadian engineering is also quite good, but we do have a lot of good Germans working with us. And also looking at new performances. So this is an example of some of the 3D printed shoes that we're not just using for a prototype, but we're really bringing to a mass market in the very near future. So that's quite exciting for us, and how we implement this sort of 3D printing technology into our factories in a very short amount of time. This also allows us new aesthetics. This is the product we have here. And allows us as well a platform to really quickly put things into the market. So actually this FutureCraft program that we have, we're launching a new technology or something we think is innovative every 2 months. So it's a bit scary for an innovation team to say, we have to do this every 2 months, come up with something new, But we actually, in the past, we had a lot of really cool ideas, but they might have been a bit further off. So biofabricated silk, making shoes out of recycled plastic from the ocean, 3D printed shoes and things like that. These things, we provide the inspiration, show what we can do, but now with a flexible factory, we can really implement them quite quickly. And they might be a little bit more niche, but at least we're doing it. As well, the transparency. So this shoe here, we have an NFC chip enabled in it, and NFC is not a new thing, or RFID is not a new thing. And our company tried it many times in the past, and so it's almost like a bad word to say, oh yeah, we have an NFC chip in it. And the consumers can tap on it and find out about their shoe. Well, it doesn't really make so much sense for us or in our mind if it's not really a part of it. So the NFC chip that gets put in this quite early in the stage is actually what steers the production. It allows us to track where the product's going, or the RFID chip, and then in the end, it's still there, so the consumer can interact with it and also learn about their product. So in our first invitation of it, it was a bit smaller, but you could give direct feedback on the difference between your left shoe and your right shoe, how it fit, how its comfort was. If there's any suggestions you had on it, you could sign your name to it, and that name would be always coupled with the shoe. And we could also say the date and where it was produced. And you imagine in the future, we can also say this was made from wool from this farm, and et cetera, et cetera. So providing a level of transparency into the manufacturing process that our consumer is asking for. The other thing is to get people into the stores, we wanted to look at lab to street. So we have great facilities for understanding athletes. Not many of you guys have probably ever been there and done it yourself, but you've probably all played some sports before. And so we want to figure out how we can bring these experiences and our knowledge to the public by bringing in some of these tools right now into the streets and looking as well how that digital chain, so if we took a foot scan of you in a mall somewhere in America, then that can go to your NFC chip, and that can be coupled to our production, and you'll still get your shoe the next day, but based on your foot scan. Those sort of things. I'll go through these a little bit quicker now. Maybe the last thing, which is quite interesting, I think some of you in IT or the Internet of Things as well can kind of appreciate this. The last couple of slides here I have is just talking about another connotation, because I've talked a lot about shoes. I shouldn't just talk about shoes, we do many other things now. But over the last months, so from December until March, we did a really interesting program where we said, okay, everyone talks about being able to do this flexibility in production in the store as well, so Speedfactory. We have the term store factory. How are we going to do this, and how quickly can we do it? So we got some nice funding, and in about 16 months, we went from nothing to a realization. These are pictures from the store that we opened and have already closed, and we use this as a real learning platform. So a consumer could walk in here. You can go in, you could interact with a digital experience to help design it, not completely design it, but look at the different patterns and interact in a kind of a Connect-based system. There's a body scanning device in there. And then in the store, there's knitting machines that essentially, in one piece, knit your product directly off of your body scan measurements with your design on it. And in about 3 hours later, you could have your product, or we send it to you the next day. And there's a lot of focus in our company, even internally. They're like, oh, we don't know if we like the product. It's got orange, it's pink. For us, it wasn't about the product. It was about making this coupled system that really worked and seamlessly was in the background operating in a very quick amount of time. And from this, we really tried things. So one week, we offered only 5 colors. Other weeks, we offered 1 color. We focused maybe sometimes only on women. Sometimes we sold them for very high prices. Other times, we reduced the price a lot, just to see how the consumers reacted. So we did some advertising. We did no advertising. Just to understand and get an idea of when we maybe turn this into something much bigger, how that will operate. So I think I've talked enough in front of you. With that, I think I'll say thank you and look forward to your questions.
Vielen herzlichen Dank. In Anbetracht der Tatsache, dass die Massenproduktion, wie Sie gesagt haben, diese Woche beginnt,
ja.
Wissen wir das noch umso mehr zu schätzen, dass Sie Zeit haben für uns. Ich gehe mal davon aus, Sie werden dringend gebraucht im Werk. Der Herr Smith steht uns für Fragen zur Verfügung. Wenn Sie Fragen haben, Beatrice ist mit dem Mikrofon unterwegs. Mich würde interessieren, ich habe in dem kurzen Film gesehen, die Robotik kommt in der Speedfactory von KUKA.
Nicht hauptsächlich, aber
ja. Die Maschinen von Manz.
Ja, das sind ein paar Maschinen, ja.
Ja. Produziert wird bei Oechsler.
Ja.
Und die betreiben auch die Produktion. Was genau war jetzt die Rolle von Adidas in der Speedfactory?
Erstmal die Idee zu haben,
ja.
und auch der Grund, das zu machen.
Ja.
Und dann, wir hatten auch überlegt, so, ich hatte vorher erklärt, dass wir arbeiten nicht mit Leuten, die sind hauptsächlich in der Schuhindustrie. So, der Manns, die hatten viel gemacht in der Batterieindustrie, in der elektronischen Industrie. Oechsler seit einer Weile hat mit uns gearbeitet, aber als Tier 3 Lieferant oder Tier 2. Aber die hat ein gutes Know-how in der Automatisierungsbranche. Und die hat auch die Glauben in uns, weil wir hatten eine lange Beziehung, dass wenn wir sagen, wir machen das und wir unterstützen unterstützen.
Yeah. You might as well talk in English.
Okay.
Answer in English, that's no problem.
Yeah, we'll see. So if they want to work with us, they also took a risk to say, we're going to also form a company, and we're going to let you kind of come in with us and put your machines in there. And we really worked closely, perhaps sometimes too closely. It wasn't our engineers, myself, or the guys on my team who built the machines or designed them, but we were there as well for the project in collaboration and working on them, finding the people like Mans or people who are competing against Mans and putting out different calls and different ideas to see who would like to work with us and who we could bring into this idea and who had the like-mindedness that we did.
You mentioned mass production, so to say, is going to start in June even, or
yeah,
in July? What's the planned volume per year?
So
the output?
It's growing. I think depending on lots of things, the volume actually keeps increasing. I mentioned before, right now with the factory as we're ramping it up, about 85,000 pairs of shoes coming out this year, which is pretty impressive for, it was nothing a year ago. A year and a half ago, there was a green field there. We're bringing it up with a company who hasn't produced shoes before, a good company, and we work well with them. But bringing that up to speed is really exciting, and then it kind of increases over the year. So in September, the one in Atlanta opens up, and that will increase right now to about 5 million pairs. If it goes well, it might be more. Yeah, we have to see as well how the market reacts to it. So it's not our only solution. We're still working in other areas, but.
So do you think that this has the potential to bring production back to Europe as a whole?
Yes, yeah. Well, not just to Europe. I think to places where production left a while ago. I think so. Even when we're saying bringing production back to Germany, it's really interesting because we've been going around as well, finding the textile providers and things like that. Germany is kind of easy because of a lot of automobile industry. And if I'm honest, probably 5 years ago, a lot of people really didn't want to talk to us. And now we have a lot more people knocking on our doors. I'm just saying, actually, cars are still interesting, but this is also an interesting field. And so we're working with these people and trying to also change a little bit, maybe not change the mindset, or just find people who have a similar mindset as us, who say, yes, we can deliver to you. Instead of producing the same gray fabric for automobile seats in huge volumes, we're actually going to also look at ways that we can change it so we can do it very last-minute coloration or deliver to you in very short amounts of time. So as we build this program up, we definitely won't have all of the phases in one roof, but through coupling it and through the digital creation chain, we'll definitely have that link, as they do in the automobile industry, from producing the yarns, producing the textiles, and bringing that into the factory and making the shoes and shipping them out as well.
Gibt es Fragen aus dem Publikum? Bitte.
Max, grüß Gott. Ich unterscheide immer zwischen personalisierten Schuhen in Ihrem Fall.
Ja.
Das sind Schuhe, die eine andere Farbe haben, ein Standardmodell, eine andere Farbe in ein Logo drauf, oder einen komplett personalisierten Schuh im Sinne von komplett individuellen Schuh. Also wo es einen Scan gibt und aufgrund des Scans wird dann ein für mich spezieller Schuh gefertigt. Ja.
Ja.
Beides bieten Sie an, wenn ich es richtig verstanden habe?
Ja, wir probieren das.
Ja. Kann ich mir als Kunde zukünftig auch einen Schuh bei Ihnen bestellen, der die 3 Streifen, also sprich Ihr Logo, nicht trägt?
Ich würde ja sagen. So, wir würden bestimmte Dinge, sodass du kannst vielleicht nicht ein Swoosh oder ein Cat da drauf machen. Und ich denke, am Ende, wir würden irgendwie das mit Adidas zu tun, aber du kannst schon sehen, es ist nicht sehr deutlich, wo die Adidas-Logo steht auf hier. So ist es ein bisschen auf der Vorderseite. Auch meine Schuhe sind von Adidas. Vielleicht die Silhouette ist bekannt, aber die 3 Streifen sind nicht sehr andeutig. Und es ist mehr, das in der Welt zum Creator zu machen. Aber wir hoffen auch, wenn die Leute, die sind mit uns, in Creating mit uns, dass die wollen auch ein bisschen davon zu sagen, ja, ich habe das mit Adidas gemacht und vielleicht, wenn ich das gemacht, auch 10.000 andere Leute können das auch haben, was ich halt gemacht. Aber
das verstehe ich schon, die Markenarbeit wird halt deutlich schwieriger. Ne? Die Arbeit an der Marke Adidas wird halt schwieriger, wenn die Marke nicht mehr erkennbar ist.
Ja.
Branding.
Ja. Ja.
Gibt es noch Fragen aus dem Publikum?
Kisch, Firma Comac. Wenn Sie alle 2 Monate eine neue Innovation in den Markt bringen, dann ist es nicht automatisch so, dass diese Innovation vom Markt angenommen wird und erfolgreich, successful wird. Wie handeln Sie das Marketing-Weiß zwischen Erfolgsprodukten und solchen, die dann sich zum Ladenhüter, zu Slow Movers entwickeln?
Entschuldigung, ich hatte nicht den letzten Satz verstanden.
Wie handeln Sie den Unterschied bei Produktinnovationen von solchen Produkten, die im Markt angenommen werden, successfully, und solchen, die der Markt ablehnt, also Slow Movers werden? Nehmen Sie die dann wieder vom Markt oder was geschieht dann?
Ja, das ist eine gute Frage. Momentan, das ist einer der Gründe, auch weil wir machen das, weil wir müssen auch ein bisschen schätzen, was wird populär. Ich habe gesagt, jetzt wir arbeiten auf ein Modell von der 80er, 18 Monate vorher, wir müssen stimmen, was wird die Trendfarbe in Salzburg sein. So, im August, es wird grün, Slimegrün vielleicht. Aber wenn wir das falsch geschätzt, dann wir produzieren diese Schuhe, weil die kommen von Asien und die sind da in der Laden, niemand möchte das kaufen, weil jetzt gelb ist die Trendfarbe. Wenn wir das dann reduzieren oder zurück in unsere Outlets, das wegzuschaffen. Aber mit dieser Fabrik jetzt, wir produzieren nur, was die Kunden möchten haben. So, und auch, wir denken auf ein Refill-Model, so vielleicht wir machen 80% von unseren Schuhen in Asien, aber die letzten 20%, wenn es ist ein sehr guter Schuh und es ist alles ausverkauft, wir können das dann direkt in den nächsten Tagen wieder in den Laden bringen, weil es ist entstanden, so wenn zum Beispiel ein Stan Smith, wenn das ist ein Trend, wenn es ist hat, wir verlieren, es ist, kann das nicht, you can't quote me, aber zwischen 30 und 40% von our sales, if it's not in the store and not in your size.
2 Fragen vielleicht noch, nur eine Anmerkung. Der Herr Smith steht uns dann in der Podiumsdiskussion auch noch zur Verfügung. Aber machen wir die 2 Fragen noch, bitte.
Hi Paul, thanks for that. My name is Wolfgang and I'm in real estate and construction, so the question mostly refers to your strategic choices.
Yeah.
You said you have identified 6 cities.
Yeah.
Could you just share with us which ones, and if there's a European, why that one and not the other one?
Yeah, so this is so we have 6 key focus cities, so it's LA, New York, London, Paris, Shanghai, and Tokyo. So those are the cities that, through our research and working with people, they're setting a lot of the major trends. So it's not to say that the other cities aren't important. I think you see we've done things in Berlin and other things like that, and we don't want to say B-grade cities, but then there's the main influencing cities, and then the cities around that, and from those places where a lot of the media, a lot of the different communication goes around, we're hoping, and it seems to be working so far, to really capture the feeling of the globe. But it's not to say that we're not going to focus on more cities as we move forward.
Letzte Frage.
Maybe you can give us an idea of the dimensions, what you are doing. How many % of revenue will you generate with Speedfactories, just say, in the next 2 years?
Not so much, if I'm honest. So we want to be profitable. I think we have to be profitable, but we still see it as a big research project. And I talked about some of the numbers before. So if we're looking by 2020 to produce 5 million pairs of shoes out of it, sounds like a lot, but currently we produce about 360 million pairs of shoes per year, and that grows by about 10 to 15% per year. So even if we really start building these factories to catch up with that growth, hopefully that growth continues, it will take a long time. And so we're not saying, and you might also read in some places, that we're taking all the jobs away from China, we're replacing people, we're shutting everything down. That's not true, but it's for us to offer a new way of creating, a business model, a new way of filling it, and a new way of interacting with people so that they don't just have to order everything off of their sofa and they come and want to work with us.
Vielen herzlichen Dank. Wir sehen uns gleich nachher bei der Podiumsdiskussion. Dankeschön.
Danke.